Hello, hi, my name is Milli and this is Milli is Booked. This is my booktube channel that I have just now started. It's been something that I have wanted to do for a really long time, and I thought we would start with doing the newbie booktuber tag. So the first question is, why did you start this channel? And the reason is I have always, not always actually, I have loved books for quite a while. I can't quite remember. It was probably in 2013 or 2014 I got really into reading. I never used to read like a lot when I was younger. When I was a kid, I'd always want to watch like TV or film or anything. I'd be like, oh, I'll just watch the film of it or something. So I've really sort of thrived sort of late teens to now into my 20s. So I wanted to start it because I've watched booktubers for a really long time, and I've always loved seeing all their videos and things, and you know, I get inspired by them, and I think some of them are really fantastic, and maybe I can do a video on sort of like booktubers that I really like and I really follow and love what they do, and you know, we have similar reading tastes or we don't. So I wanted to start it because I too would like to talk about books and would like to talk about my love of books and books I have read, and that's something that I think other people might enjoy. If not, it's a creative outlet for me to talk about books and things like that. So it's kind of one of those nice things. What are some fun and unique things you can bring to BookTube? Well, sometimes so I watch a lot of different booktubers from the UK, which is where I am, and in the US and other places as well. But I think I am very passionate about I read predominantly fantasy with some romantasy, sometimes Greek mythology retellings I've read and stuff. I've definitely shifted my mood and sort of the genres that I really like. But I think that I also read a lot of non-fiction, and I'm very specific about my non-fiction. I'm not a biography person, unfortunately. Although Kiki Palmer's, we might be. I read a lot about sort of Black British history and interesting topics relating somewhat to sort of like the empire and the repercussions of that. So I think that I haven't actually really seen many people talk about, I guess, British Black stories, or like, not predominantly that, but a lot of it is that obviously there's a lot of American booktubers that talk about lots of different books, and I've read lots of, I've read kind of different books from them, from their recommendations would have been great, but I don't really follow people that talk about non-fiction, and like some people do and some people don't, and maybe I'm just not following the people that maybe I would see this from. But I would just like to, you know, some fantasies that aren't as well hyped or anything like that. So I think it's more of just, I would like my voice thrown in, not because it's maybe different, but maybe there's something someone else could take away from it, or honestly just shedding light on some really amazing authors and amazing books, and some of the authors I have met and my experiences with them is really nice. So I don't know, just maybe another voice into the void, but like I'd quite like to give my voice to that, I guess. What are you most excited for about this new channel? As I kind of said at the beginning, like a kind of creative outlet for me. I've gone quite through a big shift in my career, and I think that this is something I've always kind of wanted to do and never done. And I'm so sorry I keep not looking at the camera, I keep looking into the view. It's something I've always wanted to do, but I never had the confidence enough to do it. But I think you just have to kind of do it. And I'm at that point where you should just do it. So that is kind of why, like, what I'm excited for is just to like talk about lots of things and talk about books I have read and maybe books I am reading and stuff like that. So yeah. Why do you love reading? There's a lot of different reasons, and I think people have different opinions on lots of reasons why you read. Escapism is obviously a big one, but I also love learning, and specifically why I read non-fiction is because I love learning new things and being like, oh, that's a really cool, interesting fact. Like in Empireland, I read that it is a hangover that we have free school meals in the UK from the Empire, because they gave them to people to make them stronger and stuff so they could go out to other continents and other countries, essentially. And they needed hardworking, you know, like strong individuals to be doing that. So that is why we have free school meals, and that has followed on. And there's so many things like that. It's just so interesting. You know, I do love history. I do love stuff like that. So I'm excited to kind of have an outlet to talk about that, and talk about lots of things, and like also to maybe meet some people and that are like-minded, because I do have friends who are into books and stuff, and I have a friend actually on here who has her own channel as well. I will link her down below because she is one of my closest friends and she is just incredible. So you know, but I also may meet some new people, and that would be really lovely. What book or series got you into reading? I think it was some fantasy books. I honestly don't remember, because it was probably over 12 years ago that I got back into reading. But I do remember I read We Are Completely and Utterly Beside Ourselves, I think, which kind of traumatized me. If anyone's read it, I don't know who the author is, but yes, that was an interesting one. And I kind of was trying to read sort of like classics and stuff. I read We Were Liars by E. Lockhart. That was one of the first books I read. And most recently it has been turned into, I think it's a series or a film. So that's kind of a full circle moment of like how long ago I read that. But yeah, I love Shadow of the Fox by Julie Kagawa. Julie Kagawa. I love that series. I need to reread it actually, which would be maybe a fun thing. What questions would you ask your favorite booktubers? I don't know, like, how do you do stuff? Like, I'm really interested in like the inner workings of stuff. Like, how do you edit videos? Like, that's probably a very basic question, but like, I don't know, just like, how do you do this? How do you shoot things all the time? And I know it's kind of like, you know, with a film and stuff like that, there's production in it and stuff, and I'm really into that, and like the backstage and behind the scenes kind of thing. So like, just be interesting to know what people use and what people do and how they do it, and I really like understanding how things work. So that would be probably my question right now. What challenges do you think starting a booktube channel will be the hardest to overcome? I think not looking into the camera will be the hardest thing. Probably just consistency. I'm someone who is really good at starting things and then not finishing things, which is why reading books is kind of helpful, and there's a goal, and there's, you know, you feel achievement after you've read it, and it's physical. I'm usually a physical book reader. I have some stuff on Kindle and stuff. I'm not an audiobook listener, unfortunately. I have tried, and it's not for me. And if that works for you, that's great. I'm not gonna say otherwise. It just doesn't work for me, unfortunately. So I think probably those things will be quite difficult for me. And also the confidence thing. It's kind of, you're putting yourself out there and stuff, but like, I think I've got to the point where it doesn't really matter. Like, at the point I'm in at the moment, I don't really care. I do care, but if I don't ever do it, I won't ever do it, and I'll regret it. When did you start reading? I feel like I covered that. But yeah, like maybe 2014, 2013, I'm not entirely sure, but definitely like in the 2017, 2016, I was definitely reading a lot more. But consistently, probably since the pandemic maybe since 2018, probably. Since then I started really reading. Where do you read? I predominantly read here, which is in my bedroom. I do love reading on trains and transport. I have read in a car before. Me and my partner, we went to Edinburgh, and while he was driving, I was like, well, I'll just read a little bit, shall I? But obviously I don't advise that, and mainly because I get car sick anyway. So I was surprised I could do that, but I do really like reading on a train. I get most of my reading done that way because I'm kind of stuck in that position, so I have to be reading, which, but I enjoy reading on trains and in a cafe and things like that. I don't do as much like when I'm at home, but if I'm traveling for work or going away or anything, that is like perfect kind of reading space, as well as like outside or like just in the garden or something like that. That's really nice. What kind of books do you like to read? Well, I did prepare some books, funnily enough. I would like to talk about some of my favourite books. So my favourite book, I think, is Circe by Madeline Miller. Now, this is, I've tabbed this. I also do tab my books for future reference. I have a few copies of this, and I love this very dearly. I have slowed down on my Greek mythology kind of retellings at the moment, but I do love that one. That is my favourite. I also didn't grab, but Love in Colour by Bolu Babalola. I'll do a whole, I feel like I need to do a whole video of my favourite books. But that is a fantastic book, and she is so lovely. I also read fantasy, as I said earlier, and Fear of the Flames, which is the indie paperback that I read. I loved this book, and I recently got the second book that came out, Wrath of Dragons. So I'm very excited to read the traditionally published and then the second book. I think it's going to be 5 series. So kind of mythology, like retellings, fantasy, romantasy, I guess you would say. Also non-fiction, specifically to do with like women's health and I guess what you would refer to as feminist intersectioning. We only want intersectioning feminism here, sorry. So books like this are really interesting to me. Kind of science, kind of medical are very interesting to me. Unwell Women is also a really good book that I love. There are some really cool women in that Elinor Cleghorn talks about, and just really fascinating to me. I also love All About Love by Bell Hooks. Again, it's a fantastic read. It's ones I need to reread these because they are fantastic. So predominantly sort of non-fiction, historical books. I also really love translated fiction, specifically Japanese translated fiction. This is one of my favourite books, which is Lonely Castle in the Mirror. I haven't tabbed this, but I do love this book. And I recently got the newest book, I think. I'm excited. There's a few coming out, I think, by that author, and I'm really excited to read it. I also have Open Water by Caleb of Zuma Nelson. If you like normal people, please read this. I didn't get on with normal people, unfortunately, and my friend talks about it like like nobody's business, but I highly recommend if anyone really, sorry about the glare, if anyone is interested in a similar kind of style. I think it's I prefer it and I love it, and I would not shut up about this. I have bought my friend a copy of this. He is also such a lovely person, but I loved this. And if you're going to compare books, you can't really compare them, but if you liked Normal People, I think you would also really like this one because it is just great. So Black British authors I also really enjoy reading. And then Nikita Gill. I do love some poetry, and Nikita Gill is one of my favourite, if not my favourite, poet, and just a wonderful wonderful person. She is coming out with a book, a Hekate. I love Greek mythology, can't say it. But she's coming out with I believe it is just a fiction fantasy retelling, I believe, but I'm very, very excited for it. But I love her poetry. It kind of got me through lockdown. So yeah, I really, really like that. So those are sort of a few of the books that, like, genres that I kind of really like. And yeah, it kind of gives a little insight of, like, I have variety in sort of my taste, so I'm not going to read. I also may randomly find, like, a book in a charity shop that I'm like, I've never heard of this, I'm going to just read it. So we'll have that. What does your book collection look like? Well, I can show you at some point, and I think that will probably be maybe the next video that I do, that would be either talking about books or a bookshelf sort of tour, which would be nice. I'm also I have quite a few jelly cats, which is so on brand for clearly book people, because Waterstones sell them, you know, a lot of booktubers I know do have jelly cats. But I think I would like to do shelf by shelf. Maybe that would be a fun thing to do, to talk about the different shelves, because I have a few bookshelves, like thin ones and like a big one and things, and they're all sort of different. I have like my non-fiction-y section and like mostly my fantasy and stuff. But yeah, I hope that, you know, if you were interested in anything that I talk about, or, you know, I'm just like oversaturated by so many booktubers and whatever, but yeah, that's me. That's kind of that's what I'm about, and hopefully I will kind of reach the people that are also interested in stuff, and maybe some other people that might be new to this thing. But yeah, so thank you for watching. If you did like, please do like for me, and yeah, I'll see you in the next video, and thank you for having me in Booktube.